So very first one, writing equations when given those 2 points. It does state in the problem that you need to write the equation in slope-intercept form. If you forget what slope-intercept form is, it's in your formula chart. It's on the reference chart. So I would take slope-intercept form and I would write it down because that should, your answer choice should look similar to it. If I look at that formula chart, slope-intercept form is right there. Y is equal to mx plus b. Okay, so I'm going to write that down first. I know this is the goal right here. This same format with numbers, okay? Now, we talked about it yesterday, we discussed it, we covered it yesterday, that slope is only associated with what type of functions? There's 3 different ones. There's linear, quadratic, and exponential. Linear. Slope, you only see the word slope with linear functions, only, no exceptions. There is no slope of a parabola, there's no slope of an exponential function. Anytime you're given 2 points, what can you do with those 2 points? You can put those into stat edit. You can put both of them into stat edit. Now, I highly recommend, and I always say it, I repeat it over and over, put your points in a table before you do that before you put it into stat edit. You always have 1 or 2 students that want to put the -4 and the 47 on the same side when they should be separate. Okay, they don't give you 2 x values and then 2 y values. No, x, y, x, y. So 2, -16. You're not actually going to have to type this in because I'm showing you the screens. So you type that into L1 and L2. We just said that slope is only associated with linear functions. So highlight this, you would use linear regression, option 4, instead of 5 and 0. And when you use that, we've done it a million times. You go into that one screen, you go down to store, alpha trace. This is the screen you're given. It gives you the numbers that you're going to use to plug in. But since we are given a decimal, chances are we're going to have to convert it back to a fraction. And how do you do that? Type in that decimal, press math, and then enter, 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 enter. So it converts that -10.5 back to a fraction, which is -21/2. And now we have the information necessary to write that equation. Now we have the numbers that we need to plug it back into slope-intercept form. It gives us the numbers that we plug in for M, and it gives us the numbers we plug in for B. So meaning everything else should stay the same. We get Y equals what? Okay, and then plus or minus what? +5. And that is what your answer choice should be. Stat edit, it'll give you the numbers to plug in. If it's a fraction, switch it back, math, enter, enter. Questions? All right. Next one. The difference between the example that I just showed you and this one is that your answer choices are in standard form. Yes, you can take each and every one of these and solve it for Y, but that would take much more time. They do give us a point, and that point represents what type of values? An X and a Y value. And each one of these equations has an X and a Y in it, with the exception of, or the only difference between each one of these answer choices is the number at the very end. So what you would do is you take that -4 and you store it for X, or you put it in the parentheses, up to you. You take that +2 and you store it for Y. Then you can type this exact equation. We know how to put an equal sign. We use equal signs, we place equal signs pressing what, second math? And we test it, okay? Now, when you test it, if you end up with a 0 with whatever number you put here, I'm just gonna put a little number sign because this is the only part that's changing, okay? If you end up with the 0, that represents the wrong answer. If you end up with the 1, that represents the right answer because the answer is true. Now, I already did it because we've done this a million times now this whole month. So answer choice A is going to give you a 0. wrong. Answer choice B gives you a 0, wrong. Answer choice C gives you a 1, maybe. Then answer choice D gives you 0. So yes, you would pick C. Now, the reason I said maybe is because if you end up with 2 zeros and 2 1s, then you would have to take those last 2 answer choices and solve them for Y. Understood? Okay. Now, the only reason I'm just explaining how to solve or how to find the answer and not actually taking the time to go through it is because the day of the STAR test, you're going to have plenty of time to do it. You have plenty of time to go through this on this weekend on your own. And we only have 50 minutes to cover all this. But once again, these are things that we have covered over and over and over. If you're given a graph, you're going to have to match it up to an equation. You're going to have to match it up to an equation. Now, what makes this problem easy is if you look at the equations in your answer choices, they're all what? Solve for Y. Recognize that having a G of X is the same as having a Y equals in that spot. So because all of my answer choices are ready to type into Y equals, I can type it in and press graph. I can look at the graph and compare the pictures, right? Now, A and B are both going to give me graphs or lines that are going up instead of down like we're supposed to be finding. So I would eliminate A and B right off the bat. C and D will give me both give me lines that are going down. So now I'm forced to take an extra step. Now I'm forced to do a little extra work, which is find some points, find some good points. So give me a few good points. Give me at least 3 good points on this in this graph. 0, 4. 3, 2. Yeah, no, that works. Yeah. -3, 6. Good. All right. Now with this one, I am going to ask you to take the time and type it in. I don't think we've practiced this enough for me to just go through it and explain it. So here we go. We're typing in answer choice C. So answer choice C has a -3/2. So type in that fraction, 3/2. X plus 6. And instead of just pressing graph, because we already know the lines are going to look similar, I'm going to press second table and see if these points pop up. Do we get a 0, 4? No, we get 0, 6. Do we get a 3, 2? No, we get 3, 3/2. So I can safely assume that C is not my correct answer. And I'm hoping and I'm praying to God that D is. So let's type the answer choice for D. We're not going to jump the gun because once again, the actual day of the STAR test, you're going to have the time to type this in. So I expect you to take the time and do that. All right, there's my 0, 4. There's my 0, 4. There's my 3, 2. We also identified -3, 6, and there it is. So D would be your correct answer. Questions? All right. So it would be the same as having a table. If you have a table, just type in your equation and match it to the table. Okay. Now the difference between this example and the one we're about to do is if you look at your answer choices, notice how they are not solved. They are not solved. Now you don't 100% have to know how to solve for Y to be able to answer this. When you solve for Y, what you need to realize is that if you do solve for Y, the letter or the variable ends up by itself. So technically, there's only one thing I need to do to each one of these answer choices for the Y to end up by itself. And I am confident that 99% of you will be able to do this. That 1% is just because y'all, and I'm not talking about, I don't think I'm talking about anybody in this class, but y'all are too dang lazy to learn how to do this one step. How do you get the Y by itself with the first answer choice. Move the plus 268 to the other side by doing what? Subtracting. Opposite of plus is minus, so 268. So I'm going to move that minus 268 to the very end. I'm not going to worry about distributing and combining anything like that, because guess what? The calculator will do the work for me. I just need to make sure the y is by itself. You do the same thing with this 20. It's positive, so I subtract 20, and I'm just going to attach it to the very end. Once again, I'm going to allow the calculator to do the work for me. So essentially, I'm typing all of this into y equals, all of this into y equals. Same here, minus 268 minus 20. If you cannot move one number, have fun in algebra next year, okay? From there, you're going to type it into y equals and match it to the table. And only one of these answer choices will give you the correct answer. So I'm going to narrow it down to two. I'm going to narrow it down to A and C. Okay, let's type in A. Make you do a little bit of work. Make you work for it a little bit. Oh, Lord. 1/12 x. I don't like typing with my mouse. This sucks. Minus 268. Whew. Now press second graph. Go to the table. Does the -1 give me that -40 that I'm looking for? No, it gives me -3,197. So I'm going to assume that A is not the correct answer. I'm not going to jump the gun and go ahead and circle C. I'm going to actually type it in. Take the time. So 12 x plus 20, right? Minus 268, second graph. And there's my -140. If I go up to, y. If I go up to -8, there's my -8, 124. If I go up to -14, there's my -14, 196. Everybody see that? So C is the correct answer. Questions? If you have no questions, turn the page. Inequalities. The one thing I cannot teach you how to do is solve for y. I cannot teach you how to solve for y, and I cannot remember for you what type of inequality is a solid or dotted, but I can remind you. So this inequality right here represents what type of line? Dotted. Those of you still having trouble, even though we went over this yesterday, if it's underlined, you literally have a solid line under the inequality. That's how to know the difference, but there isn't. So from there, those of you that do not know how to solve for y and are not confident in your skills of solving for y, you know that your solution is in the shaded area, or you should know that by now. So you can literally pick any point. I wouldn't pick something close to the line. Picking something close to the line is like almost getting it wrong. Pick a safe point. A safe point would be right smack in the middle of the shaded area. So for the very first one, I would pick something like -6, 7, where I know I can store and substitute that -6 for my x, and I can store and substitute the 7 for y. Test it out. You have x, you have y. We said if you do that, if you choose to do that, what would you use instead of the inequality? Equal sign. You always want to use an equal sign first. Then we come over here. I picked 5, -2. The only way you could go wrong with this is if you don't know how to plot a point. Sadly, I feel like that's going to happen. So 5, -2. Now, when I actually do test it, the one on the left is going to give me a 1, the one on the right is going to give me a 0. So which one is my correct answer? The one on the left. This is the right answer choice. This one is the wrong answer choice. Now, because I do have some people that are good at solving for y, and I want to show them, I want to be able to practice with them how to shade using y equals, we are going to solve for y on this one, okay? I'm going to solve for y right down here. So I'm going to write my negative 2x plus 3y. Once again, if you don't think you can do this, when we get to the STAR test, which is next Wednesday, stay away from it. Don't do it. Just pick a point. What's the first step? Plus 2x. We bring down that 3y, 2x plus 12. And then what's the last step? Divide by 3. Divide by 3. Now, knowing when to flip that symbol depends on when you divide. Knowing when to flip the symbol depends on when you divide. But if you're dividing by a positive number, is it necessary to flip it? No, unless you divide by a negative number. 2 over 3x plus, and 12 over 3 gives me 4. Both of those lines represent this one. So the only difference is going to lie right here in the name of the symbol. You have to know the name of the symbol to know which way to shade it. What is the name of that one? So if it's greater, meaning we're going to shade which way, above or below? Greater is above. If my grade is greater than yours, that means it is above yours, right? And just from there, you know that the answer is the first one instead of the second one. But I want to type it in. That way we can practice doing that with the calculator. So go to y equals, type in that equation, 2 over 3. Plus 4. And you go to the very, very far left on the left side of the y to tell the calculator which way to shade it. If you press enter one time, it's going to shade in between 2 lines, but we don't have 2 lines. Press enter again. A top triangle shades above. So press graph. Now, this screen is still in the last screen that I used. So to reset it, you would use Zoom 6, the standard window. Standard meaning the window that most graphs use, which goes from -10 to 10, -10 to 10. And there it is. Everybody see it? Now, using this feature right here will not help you to know whether it's solid or dotted. There's nothing for that. Questions? All right. System. A system of equations. When you have 2 straight lines graphed on the same coordinate plane, what we're looking for is the point of intersection. Now, if you look at the point of intersection on this graph, it's not a very good point, but I can get pretty close. It's close enough to what point, to what numbers? 2, 3. 2, 3. That's the point where these 2 lines cross. But look at your answer choices. All of your answer choices are not solved. So I can't simply take those and put it into y equals and compare the pictures of the graph. But what can I notice? What should you be able to notice? Nope. Correct. You would be able to do matrix on these answer choices because if you look at it, you'll notice that the x and the y are on the same side. If your equations are in standard form, AKA where the x and the y are on the same side, you can put those into matrix. Now, I've already done that part for you. So I'm going to give you the answer choices or I'm going to give you the points of intersection and you tell me what the correct answer would be. So let's start with A. Once again, I did this part for you because the day of the STAR test, you're going to have plenty of time to do matrix. Right now, we just have 50 minutes to cover this. Okay. All right. A, if you do matrix on it, it'll give you 1.7 and 3.2. B will give you 1.8 and -0.3. C will give you negative 1.4, 5.5. And D will give you negative 5.4 and 15.4. So notice how the point of intersection lies in the first quadrant. It's in the first quadrant. And in the first quadrant, what do we know about all of the numbers anywhere in this first square? They're all positive. So I ended up with 3 negative answer choices. B has that negative 0.3, not it. C has a negative 1.4, not it. D has negative 5.4, not it. 1.7 is close enough to a 2. 3.2 is close enough to that 3. There's my 2, 3. My answer is A. Questions? If there's no more questions, turn the page. This next example, when you have to do it yourself, the daily STAR test, it is a little bit time consuming because you are actually going to be combining 2 calculator strategies into one. Okay. Anytime you see a table, you should be looking for one of 3 words: linear, quadratic, or exponential. I don't see either one of those in there, but I do see the word line 1, 2, 3 times. Line is a word that you do not find with quadratics. There is no quadratic line. There's a quadratic parabola, and exponential, same thing. So simply knowing that line is only associated with linear regression, you're good to go. Lin reg. So you put those points in a stat edit, you do stat calculate number 4. When you do that, the first table is going to give you A equals 3 and B equals 27. So written as an equation, what would you get? Y equals what? Okay. The second one, when you put it into stat edit, stat calculate 4, will give you negative 0.5 and B gives you 8. So Enrique, what's that equation? Y equals what? All right, anybody else? Come on. Correct. So look at these equations. Once again, you're stuck with that situation where it's possible, if you don't know how to do this calculator part, the second part of this, you would have to solve all 8 equations for Y. But the good news is you won't have to. All you need to do is matrix on them. But doing matrix on each of these answer choices is going to give you a point of intersection, which is something that we still don't have. This is what we're going to practice because we haven't practiced this a whole lot. So you have 2 equations. Both equations are solved for Y. Type those into Y equals. So we're going to go to Y equals. Type your 3x plus 27 and negative 0.5x plus 8. Go to your standard window, zoom 6. I just want to, because I need to make sure that I can see where they cross. Can I see it? Nope, but I'm close. So I'm going to try to do zoom fit. Yes, you can use zoom out, and you might have to use zoom out after using zoom fit, but 9 out of 10 times zoom fit works. And I like it because most of the time it just fits everything you need to see, everything you need to be able to see. There it is. So now that I can see my point of intersection, what do I press? Number 5. And there's my point of intersection. So negative 5.4 and 10.7. So this is where those 2 lines intersect. And now I can find where all of these intersect by using matrix. And when you do that, when you punch those into matrix, A will give you 0.7 and 6.0. So I can go ahead and eliminate that. B will give you negative 5.4 10.7. Put a little question mark for maybe, even though I can clearly see that they're the same numbers. Next, 0.56, 2.8. I can go ahead and eliminate C, and then D, negative 2.4 and 5.2. So I can eliminate D. So notice how B matches up with the other point of intersection. Because you have to do stat edits, stat calculate, all that stuff, and then still put them into y equals. Once again, I told you it's a little time consuming, but it's actually easy as long as you know the calculator tricks for it. Got it? Questions? All right, go ahead and turn the page. We'll come back to this other page that we're about to skip. Almost done, I promise. Not that one. Yep. So we're writing equations. We're given a word problem, and if you look at your answer choices, they're all in y is equal to mx plus b form. So there's two pieces of information that I need. One of them is easier to find than the other. Slope, because we have a lot of keywords that we have learned, a lot of words that represent slope. Rate of change, rate, ratio, per, each, every. Where do you see one of those words? And what number do you see it next to? Go wash your face. Each. We see the word each box, and each box, there's that keyword that lets you know that each represents slope. And it says each box holds what? 8 jars. So we know that slope goes in front of x, so I'm looking for an 8x. I can go ahead and eliminate what? D. We can go ahead and eliminate D. From there, the only other difference between these other three answer choices lies in the y-intercept, 6, 0, or -2. So I'm going to go with the number that I can actually find in the word problem. Which one is it? I can find the 2. And what type of words or what phrases do we have around that 2? The cook used 2 jars. So if he used 2 jars, does that mean he added 2 jars to the box, or did he subtract? Subtract. So does that -2 make sense? Yeah, it does make sense. So C would be the answer. Questions? All right, the inequality. This one has 2 variables. So the very first thing you would be, now just FYI, these keywords are not going to be there on the day of the STAR test. They're not going to be in the formula chart. I gave them to you, but you need to be able to wait. You need to be able to find a way to think your way through all that. Okay, here we go. You start by identifying the variables. Either it's going to give you the variables in the word problem, or you make some up. Now on 7, 9, and 20 from last night's packet, you're going to have to make your own variables. Okay, so this one does give you the variables. It gives you X and it gives you Y. Tell me, what does X represent? Number of sausage links. And what does Y represent? Number of briskets. Number of briskets. Knowing that information does not help me find my answer. So I now need to look for that word in the word problem, and you can find it in the first paragraph. So sausage, find it, and it is around what number? I'm recording. Sausage is around the number 2 pounds. The sausage links weigh 2 pounds, so I can put the 2 in front of X. Briskets weigh how much? 6 pounds. So just knowing this much information now, I can eliminate what answer choices? A and C because the number is not attached to the correct variable. Now, between B and D, the difference lies in the inequality. So I need to find those keywords. What is my keywords here? No more than. Let's say your mom sends you to the store and she tells you you cannot spend, you can spend no more than 20 bucks. If you cannot spend more, that means you have to spend less. And B has that less than symbol. If you don't have questions, flip back to that last one. Take your friend with you. Go. So I wanted to leave this one for the very end because you still have 7, 9, and 20 that you need to work on from last night's packet. Now, 7, 9, and 20, you're going to have to create your own equation. So I'm going to try to stay away from the answer choices as much as possible. Okay. If it doesn't give you a variable in the word problem, you have to make up your own. In this one, it does give me one. It gives me B and it gives me C. What does B represent? Black and white copies. Now I actually see some information here in regarding black and white copies, so I can actually put a B right next to this 0.08. C represents the number of color copies. So I'm gonna put a little C right there next to the number. Now we can go ahead and eliminate 2 answer choices, just knowing that much. What 2? B and C. Because the numbers are attached to the wrong variable. From there, you do need to know how to create your own equation because on 7, 9, and 20, you're gonna have to put those in a matrix. So here we go. To create your equations, you also need to be able to find the totals. What are my 2 totals? There it is, $6.68 copies. Where do you find totals typically in any equation? In the front or in the end? In the end. So let's start with the totals. We have $6 and we have 68 copies. Okay. I know my variables are, man, I was about to write X and Y, B and C. B and C. Now, since the 6 represents a dollar amount, I was able to find other dollar amounts in the problem. We attached 0.08, 8 cents, $0.08 to B and 15 cents, 0.15 C. I didn't find anything else about there being so many black and so many color copies. So because I don't have a number here, what number would I attach? Because I couldn't find those numbers, I would attach one certain number, which is 1. This helps me for matrix. It doesn't help me find the answer, but now I can find the answer. I can fill in my numbers with some dollar signs. So 8 is $1, 15 is $1, $6, 8 cents is a dollar amount, 15 cents is a dollar amount, $6. So which one's my correct answer? D. Notice how all of your dollar amounts are with the same equation. Okay. Now on 7, 9, and 20 from last night's packet, you're once again going to have to take that extra step to put it into matrix. And I went ahead and did that. So let's say you're given 60 and you're given 8. And let's say, for example, the question asks, how many black and white copies did we make? 60 goes with the first variable goes with the top number. The second variable, not an X, sorry, you're supposed to put a B. If it's the first variable, it'll be the first number, B. Second variable is C, second number is, bottom number is C. So 60 represents the number of black and white copies. Lord, I'm losing it. Black and white. while C represents the number of color copies. On 7, 9, especially with 20 is going to be a griddable, but 7 and 9 actually give you some answer choices. So make sure you're picking the correct number. Got it? All right.